I only asked you because you used to work in Somerville. You know how to work it. Well, good morning. It's a great summer day, right? Good morning. I know we're going to get some rain, but it's been good every other day. And welcome to Somerville. I'm Joe Curtatone. I'm the mayor of Somerville, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here along with my colleagues in government and municipal management from around the state and at the state level, along with Secretary Shor, as we talk about the state's municipal management program and highlight some of the most innovative examples of performance management and municipal management across this Commonwealth. You'll be hearing from all the individual panelists, and they'll speak briefly. At the end, I'll close, and we'll also be available. I know there's some representatives in the media here. We'll be available for questions during and after this brief discussion. Let me just introduce who is here, and then I'll call them up one at a time. I'm joined by Mayor Thatcher Keyser from the city of Amesbury. You can applaud for Thatcher, he's a good person. Mayor Daniel Napick of the city of Westfield. Mayor David Narkowitz from the city of Northampton. From the city of Lowell, City Manager Bernard Litch. From the town of Orange, Deanna Schindler. Mayor Scott Galvin of the city of Woburn. Suzanne Kennedy is the town administrator of the town of Medway. And my good friend from the city of Revere, Mayor Dan Rizzo. At this time, please join me in welcoming him. He's the Secretary of the Administration and Finance. He's been a great partner, along with Governor Deborah Patrick, for cities and towns, and his predecessor, Jay Gonzalez, really working together with municipalities across the Commonwealth, unlocking opportunities, helping us to deal with our everyday challenges, promoting innovative programs like the Municipal Performance Management Program. Please welcome Secretary of A&F, Glen Shor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning. Thank you for all of you for attending. Mr. Mayor, obviously I salute your leadership in using performance management to develop a transparent, results-driven culture in government, and I salute all of your leadership and your commitment to performance management at the local level. Performance management is hardly a distant topic for us in state government. It is hardly unknown to us and to Governor Patrick. At the state level, we are very focused on building a more results-oriented government, precisely because we operate under the same pressures and the same demands and the same imperatives you do at the local level. We have limited resources. We have, understandably, a strong desire on the part of the citizens of the Commonwealth that we use their taxpayer dollars wisely, that we deliver services efficiently in the most customer-friendly way, and that we operate with a maximum of transparency. In this day and age, the internet is an incredible tool to do business. It's also an incredible tool to understand and monitor government. And there's an expectation that we are going to use technology to deliver services more efficiently and make the operation of state government more transparent and open. For us, that drives us to strive to be more results-oriented, data-driven, and public-facing in our operations. And I'm sure those are the same imperatives that you felt and that have driven you towards a greater emphasis on performance management. For us, the outgrowth of those imperatives is something we call Mass Results. Mass Results is our performance management initiative under Governor Patrick's leadership in state government. One of the cornerstones of Mass Results is the publication of a 2-year strategic plan for each of the governor's secretariats. We're very proud at the Secretary for Administration and Finance, we published our own 2-year strategic plan, and the panoply of agencies that work under the Executive Office of Administration and Finance, many representing the backbone of state government, the Human Resources Division, the Operational Services Division, the Group Insurance Commission, have each published their own strategic plans. In A&F's strategic plans, we lay out our goals, but really importantly, we have included 40 performance measures in that plan. that measure the degree to which we are achieving our goals. We have laid out targets for each of those performance measures, and we are reporting publicly on the degree to which we are actually achieving those results. In fact, we published our strategic plan, I think last year. We did an updated version with the release of the governor's budget in January. I'm expecting in the next couple of weeks we will do our first public report on how A&F, the Secretariat, is stacking up against the measures that it has indicated are important to the achievement of its goals. We're working on compiling that right now. And of course, we're not the only secretary in state government doing that. The 7 secretariats are doing it. And the total number of outcome measures included in the Secretariat's strategic plans totals 369 outcome measures. For the other secretariats across state government, performance against those outcome measures will be published with the release of the governor's next budget. I can't believe it's just around the corner, in January of next year, which we call House 2. Our focus on performance management obviously drives us to partner with you. Our partnership on these issues is sort of at the juncture of understanding 2 things. Number one, many of the services by which taxpayers measure us, many of the services by which people evaluate whether government is doing the job or not doing the job are in fact delivered at the local level. So far from ignoring the importance of empowering municipalities to deliver services efficiently, if we're to achieve our broad objective of building a stronger Commonwealth, we have to partner with you. And of course, this administration has emphasized a strong partnership with municipalities from its inception, from our work together on healthcare cost containment, for our work together on the Community Innovation Challenge Grant Program more broadly, from our work together on local aid, our work together to weather a very difficult recession, on local option taxes, and on so many different things. We know that we're in this together, so it's natural for us to work together on promoting performance management. One of the keys to making this partnership work well has been the Collins Center, and I salute Ira Jackson and others from the Collins Center who are here today. The Collins Center has been the vehicle through which we have been able to work with you to implement performance management at the municipal level, assisting you at your great work. It allows the administration to assist you in developing your own performance management program. The funding for the Municipal Performance Management Program actually comes from the Community Innovation Challenge Grant Program, which is broadly providing assistance to municipalities across the Commonwealth to innovate. We're really proud of the fact that with these Community Innovation Challenge Grant resources, the Municipal Performance Management Program is helping 24 cities and towns implement performance management. I think that covers about 15% of the residents of the Commonwealth, 10 of 14 of our counties. So the geographic sweep is wide for performance management. The impact on people of the Commonwealth is broad and deep. And we are seeing incredibly innovative things happen by virtue of your good work. I had the opportunity in preparation for this event to read about some of the things you are doing as part of your municipal performance management programs. It's exceptional, it's exciting, it's innovative, and frankly, it gives us a lot of food for thought as we look to make state government itself more efficient and effective and responsive and transparent. I see a lot of work on doing innovative things in the areas of public safety, police and fire, on human resources, on public works, and notably and appropriately, we see it's not simply about using data to identify things to cut. I noticed a lot of using data to identify things to invest in, IT in particular, and that makes abundant sense. And frankly, that's something we're doing at the state level well, is understanding the role that technology can play in improving the delivery of service, to doing things more efficiently, doing more with less personnel. We are doing a lot of investment in IT precisely for this reason. It's no surprise to see you're doing it so well at the local level. I'm very happy today that this partnership that we've established will continue. The fiscal 14 budget signed by the governor enables us to provide funding to support a 3rd year of the Municipal Performance Management Program. So far from walking away, we're going to be in this with you together to show the Commonwealth, in fact the world, how government can innovate and perform at an even higher level and broaden public satisfaction with government, and most importantly, get the job done. Today, I look forward to, and I'm sure we all look forward to hearing at greater length the great things you're doing, realized through the establishment and expansion of municipal performance management programs. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it back to the mayor to get the program started, and thank you again for your leadership and for your partnership.
Thank you, Secretary. Before I introduce the first panelist to speak, I do want to recognize, I omitted his name the last time, I apologize, he's from our neighboring community, partner community of Arlington. He's the Assistant Town Manager, Andrew Flanagan. Welcome, Manager Flanagan. And I do want to also give further recognition, especially to the McCormick Graduate School and the Collins Center, UMass Boston. They've been an incredible resource for municipalities across this Commonwealth. And I can speak from Somerville. You know, I've worked with Steve McGoldrick for about 18 years on and off in different capacities. And Steve, you know, worked in the city of Somerville years ago, was part of the City of Chelsea reform, at the MAPC, at the Collins Center. And Steve, an incredible resource at the Collins Center. Every municipality should be reaching out to you, as well as to one of the founding fathers of the Harvard Kennedy School and the former Commissioner of Revenue, now the Dean of the McCormick Graduate School, Ira Jackson. Welcome you both to Somerville. We really appreciate it. This time I want to introduce a great friend and colleague of mine from the city of Amesbury, Mayor Thatcher Keyser.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's great to be in your city of Somerville. I've seen this chamber on numerous occasions on YouTube. It's great to be here in person. What I'm going to do is review a bunch of bullets of what we've accomplished through our staff programs. I'm going to move fairly quickly because we have a lot of panelists to join us that all want to share the successes. So I guess our goal is to whet your appetite at this phase of it, and welcome to answer any questions going forward. The fundamental thing that we tried to achieve through AIMSTAT, our staff program, is two things. One is accountability, which gets a lot of attention. You know, the whole city stat effort out of Baltimore was all about holding the department heads accountable for the function of government, and that's a critical piece of this in order to better manage your communities. But the other half of it is advocacy, and that's the knowledge that I gain through this process so that I'm the one that can advocate for the resources through the city council or to the residents for what we need in order to better deliver municipal services. So they're equal parts of the underlying theme of what we do. So some of the accomplishments we've had. One, working with the fire department and looking at budget numbers, call volumes, mutual aid in, mutual aid out, looking at all those numbers, raised the question in my mind to the chief of, as we run a in-service ambulance service in our fire department, is there enough volume to warrant adding a third ambulance to our fleet for the sole purpose of making money? Is there enough volume there? And the chief went off and looked at the information, the numbers, and came back. And that's where we implemented our chase car policy, so that rather than sending a 20-plus ton, 4 miles to gallon diesel, 3 firefighter, $500,000 fire truck hitting our potholes and breaking axles, we instead went to a $30,000 SUV with 1 or 2 ALS, Advanced Life Support EMTs, doing the ALS type responses, chasing the ambulances. And what it did is it gave, flexibility for them, because they can go from scene to scene, both in the city as well as mutual aid in the region, and be more fleet afoot, moving around. The result has been, one, our maintenance costs have gone down significantly on our fire engines. We're not breaking them as much as we used to. But secondly, we are generating a lot more revenue, because for every call they go on in the chase vehicle, that's revenue through insurance policies that the patients, our customers, end up paying. So we have seen a significant increase in our revenue, a decrease in our costs. It's been very successful in that implementation. Next, my first 2 years in office, I had what I would call a less than friendly city council. 2/3 majority that they're just gonna cut cut budgets and save taxpayers money. And one department that they significantly went after was the police department. And on the scale of, for Amesbury, we're currently a $53 million operating budget, about a $3 million police budget. They cut about $320,000 from the police department budget. And it was just a pure auction. You know, let's cut 200, how about 250, 300, 325, okay, 325. And that's what they did. We had to withdraw police from the street. We had to operate basically below the staffing levels that we wanted to, and you know, the union was very cooperative to get us through this period. But we continued to track our crime statistics as well as our budget statistics. And what we were able to do at that time was produce a graph that simply showed a direct correlation, an inverse correlation between how much we're spending in salaries relative to the increase in crime. And so we ran for 2-3 months at those levels of operation, and then what we did is the chief and I made a decision, put the guys back out on the street, the cops on the street, and let's find out what's going on. And we busted all kinds of folks doing all kinds of not so good things. We were then able to take those stats and go back to the city council. Again, these are going to be, we're going to cut taxes no matter what. And we presented them the information, showed them the charts, and they voted to restore full funding back to our original request. And I would say I'm on my 7th fiscal year with Amesbury. I've been able to get the city council to pretty much fund everything I've asked for in my budget because, one, we are able to back it up with the statistics we need to show what the level of services that are required. That's a key component of advocacy. We also use the data, the Amestat data, and it's a big assist for our annual reports. We've integrated a lot more charts and graphs and provided a better picture for the public about what we do as a city. The past, you know, the reports are all lots of words, lots of numbers, but just really taking the charts and graphs that we pull right off our PowerPoint slides and started plopping them into our annual reports and have gotten a much better response. My last point, several years ago we regionalized our health departments. The city of Newburyport and Salisbury and Amesbury, when the 9C cuts came down 4 years ago. And again, looking at our numbers, looking at the production that we're doing, and then working with our neighboring cities, regionalized the departments. Newburyport was the lead city in the interim period, got our services from there. But let me tell you, I was the biggest villain in the health industry. I jeopardized the health and welfare of my city by regionalizing. I was even on CNN nationwide as the reason why healthcare costs are spiraling out of control because we stopped providing them. But it was worth it because a $300,000 a year function, we're saving $100,000 a year. In our productivity, in some of our functions, we doubled productivity at 1/10 the cost. Our health inspections, you know, just a huge turnaround. So those are all quick examples of successes by having the data and being able to do both. Accountability of our department heads, but having the means and the data for advocacy to provide the services that our residents expect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And reminiscing a bit, as I remember I took office in 2004, yourself in 2006, Somerville launched Somerset, and looking for friends around the state to follow us and be with us. And I had one colleague who jumped right on board. I think a lot had to do with his military background and using data, but believed in data and managing for results, utilizing data to manage for results. And working with Thatcher Keyser and talking to colleagues around the state in many different municipal forums has been really very rewarding, and to see a lot of colleagues join us in the endeavor. At this time, please welcome from the city of Westfield, Mayor Daniel Napick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming out here, everybody from the state and from our local and media sources. This is a great opportunity for us at the local level and local government to talk about a really wonderful program that has provided some significant tools to make our government more responsive. I'd like to thank the Collins Center for all of the help that they have provided to my city, and certainly Governor Patrick's administration is fantastic to the city of Westfield. And one of the most critical things that I thought the Collins Center provided for all new mayors was the new mayors training program that I took part of in 2010. So, or actually it was in the fall of 2009 after the election. So I had come from a 20-year history in business, was self-employed, had sold that business, made some money, got lucky along the way, and got ownership in another business. And through 20 years of business, you learn that nothing ever stays the same, and change is always something that you're going to count on. But you also learn continuous improvement. And that's one thing, when I appeared at in the mayor's office, those were foreign concepts to local government. Department heads typically saw mayors as the flavor of the day. Well, we'll just outlast this one, and everything will be great. So I knew there was going to be a challenge in front of us, and one of the things that I walked away from that new mayor training program was Mayor Keyser talking about Amesbury. And there was an example provided that morning about sanitation analysis, and did it make sense to privatize versus keep it a local level, and we talked about the fire and the health regionalization. So I came to office, and I'm a big proponent of regionalization and some of these other tools that I learned about very quickly on these topics, and we began to implement it. And the galvanizing issue for me was the summer of 2010. I have 300 road miles in Westfield, nearly 50 square miles, and I'm still getting hammered by pothole calls in July. And that just shouldn't go on anymore. And so I got our team together, because we didn't have bodies in position to participate in city stat. So I took our IT director, our city auditor, DPW director, and a few other folks, and we participated informally as a community with the regional city stat program, and we sent them out. We began to analyze a few things. To Thatcher's point, the most important thing I think it did for me was it provided me an opportunity to understand what we were up against and advocate for the city service delivery entities. And you can't understand what we're up against until you measure what you have in front of you. And I was amazed and astonished by a couple things, that we had over the course of the last 30 years an incredible reduction in our DPW force, but they were still incredibly productive, but it didn't always mean that they met the expectations of the taxpayer. So one of the things I wanted to measure simply in the following year was how quick we could respond and get better every year. So something that might take 7 days, like a pothole fill on a call, every day it's out there, we know about it, and a car hits it, that's claim eligible against us. I wanted to cut that down by 50% in the first year. And one of the things I identified using CityStat was, if we were going to uptick that level of effort for that activity, we could hire it in-house, but to get the production I needed, it was going to be more costly to hire it in-house versus contractor support. So what we've been able to do on the services that we've identified that it didn't make sense to hire additional staff, we've been able to plug in private contractors to supplement the activity to get it done faster, more inexpensively, and get a better end product for the taxpayer. And that's really what it was all about. And then I had back before we got involved in the latest grant round, we analyzed our sanitation operation. And we had an automated system from over a decade ago. The trucks were kind of aging out. But over the years, what happens sometimes in management kind of falls into bad habits. And I found out that the crews, through analysis, were 2 men on a truck and 450 stops a day, when it should have been 1 man, 1,000 stops a day. And they were working a 5-hour workday. So we analyzed it, we took a look at it, we actually did some requests for proposals for privatization. And what's interesting to me was that if I took the capital purchase of the vehicles out of the equation, we could pick up rubbish, and that's one thing the city does exceptionally well. We could pick it up cheaper than if we privatized it. So for those folks that always think the private sector's got the answer, that was clearly articulated that we had a better product in Westfield. It was very popular, but it needed to get more efficient. So we used these tools and the training we took back to be able to implement that. And now we're at the point now with a modern fleet that we're going to be going to single stream recycling and reduce our sanitation costs. But I still get the critics out there, why didn't you privatize it? Well, now I can show you why we didn't need to privatize it. I would have never been able to do that without studying this. And then 2011 we took off. We had 4 federally declared natural disasters in town, and that kind of threw all our statistics off the chart. But we came back in a robust fashion in late 2012, and again with the help of this latest Collins Center grant in 2013, and our analyst is here, Elham has been wonderful. We have been able to take our data analysis to a much better level. And now we are now actually at the point where when somebody says to me, Mayor, you know, we could use some more staffing here. Okay, well, let's go and let's take a look at that and see if you actually do. Because one of the things with being in a very tight economic time at the local level, if you're going to bring somebody on, you need to be able to demonstrate that it makes financial sense to do so. And these are great tools to do that. And one of the other interesting things, now that we're looking at personnel, we're also moving at equipment assets. And we had a recent discovery that our insurance asset list didn't match with what our department inventory was. So we had some vehicles that were floating around unattended out there. And there's all this information in many cities scattered amongst many different people. And what this system does is it brings it all together so that the chief executive and the financial team have the data in front of them to make informed decisions. And if you have to go to the council to support that, you have the data there. If you have to sell it on the taxpayer, you can show that this is why we're spending X money, we're getting a better end product, and we're doing it faster. You would never be able to do any of this without this assistance. We would have never been able to do it on our own without the Collins Center. And I'll just simply close on this. I am a huge proponent of education. I'm a product of public school education myself. But from a mayor's perspective, what I can tell you is an enormous amount of money goes into all of our educational systems, and I have yet found what I would consider to be a great business acumen in school districts across the way. It's more money's always the answer. I don't buy that. And I've been an advocate in my position as the mayor's office is to try to begin to study the spending that goes on at these local educational levels to get a better product, because everybody wants to have a better product. That's without question. And I'm glad to see the Collins Center is starting to look at some analysis in the educational circle, because you know what, that is the largest area of funding for most cities and towns, and I know there's places for improvement there. And I welcome the opportunity to participate in the next avenue of grants there. So thanks for all the folks at the Collins Center do for us. They've been a wonderful opportunity. Thanks, Mayor, for hosting us today. It's been a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, we are some really talented municipal officials, both as elected mayors and CEOs and managers and administrators. In the last couple of years, we've been joined by such talented people as Mayor Napick, and this next mayor, you'll hear from the city of Northampton, Mayor David Narkowitz.
Good morning. I'm Mayor David Narkowitz from the city of Northampton. I too want to join my colleagues in thanking the Secretary as well as the folks from the Collins Center and our colleague Mayor Curtatone for this opportunity to talk about our participation in StatNet and in performance management. I ran for office. I'm in my first term, and one of the things I talked about in my first campaign was the idea of implementing performance management. With tight budgets, really trying to make sure that we can deliver cost-effective services to our residents in difficult economic times, and really be able to show them that the investments we're making in those services are sound ones. I actually want to mention the new mayor's program, because I too attended that, which was hosted by the Collins Center, and had the opportunity to talk with Mayor Keyser, who I'd been sort of following his AIMSTAT program, and picked his brain, also some other colleagues, and I asked Mayor Keyser, so how did you go about, launching your program? And he said, well, I just put it in my inaugural address, said I was going to do it, and that sort of forced me to do it. So I took his sage advice, and I put it in my inaugural address and said, we're going to launch this program. I had done, early in my term, we did a number of sort of in-house work around performance management. I inherited a vexing overtime problem in my parking system. We had really high rates of overtime, which we really couldn't explain, lots of maintenance callbacks, and using some performance management techniques and some data collection, we were able to identify some problems there. Long story short, our parking manager retired and no longer works for the city. We've reduced the staff in that department by 2, and we've taken an overtime budget that was on the range of $40,000 to $60,000, and it's now below $10,000 a year. So that was a quick success, and so we wanted to quickly replicate that, and the timing was perfect when the grant program came along through the Community Innovations program that allowed us to apply to participate in this StatNet program with the Collins Center. And I too want to thank Mike Ward, who's here, and Elham Sliman, who's our analyst, who's been working with us. We put together a team. We've been working with primarily our police, our fire, our DPW. We're now branching out into some other departments. In my case, the successes that I can talk about from working in the program, the initial apprehension sometimes from department heads is that, this is a punitive thing. This is going to be to identify problems. But actually what you sometimes also find is that you identify best practices that are happening in your city, really good practices, and how can we replicate these across other city departments. So one of our successes was our police department, who in fact had been using CompStat principles for many, many years, had been collecting this data, using this data, and had really well-developed systems in place around fleet maintenance, fleet replacement programs, attendance policies, vacation and overtime policies. And we really used StatNet as an opportunity to highlight those, to really give kudos to this department, and then really use those and say, how can we replicate these in other departments that should be doing the same thing? Sort of a different story with the Department of Public Works, which, as my colleagues know, is where the rubber meets the road often with constituents, whether it's potholes or tree limbs or water and sewer issues. What we discovered in the process is our DPW really didn't have a good system in place for data collection. We're not really using a very modern work order system. So we used our Northampton STAT program really as a catalyst to pull together their managers and their team to implement a robust work order system. Fast forward to the present, not only have we gotten a work order system up and running, we're also using, through another grant from ANF, the C-Click Fix mobile app, which we've now integrated with that work order system. So we have constituents who are, either Facebooking me or tweeting me and saying, Mayor, I just reported a pothole on the mobile app and they're out here today fixing it. So it really works. Which, if you saw where we were at the start of the process with, handwritten records and work orders and things like that, we've really come light years. And again, the StatNet has provided that forum for us to really have that data-driven discussion. Fire has been another area. As a new mayor, trying to wrap my brain around how a fire department functions. And things like callbacks and shift float and all these other terms, it's provided a way for me to really test some of those assumptions and say, well, why do we have a shift float of X? And what are the metrics that we use to call people back and really test those things? So it's been a great forum for working with my fire department. It's also been a way for us to highlight some of the good things that we're doing in the fire department and talk about the successes we've had. So we've developed a fire department scorecard, which we're going to be featuring soon on our website. Because again, we can do all this work internally, which is all very valuable, but as some of my colleagues have said before me, communicating that to the taxpayers, that their money is being spent well and that we're really providing top-notch services is one of the other benefits. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank obviously the Collins Center and the Commonwealth for providing the funding for a city like Northampton, sort of a mid-sized city that doesn't necessarily have the staff capacity to get a program like this off the ground. This grant has allowed us to do that, and hopefully we can keep it moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. When I was a mayor, before I was mayor, when I was an alderman, I served 8 years in the legislative body, and we saw the innovative practices of the city of Baltimore by then Mayor Martin O'Malley. We were advocating that we should be taking these same innovative approaches in Somerville. And I often heard the response, well, that's a big city, we're a small city. That's Baltimore, we're Somerville. So it's exciting to see that cities of all sizes in this Commonwealth, as well as different forms of government, have undertaken the best practice of statting. And you're going to start hearing now, as well as not just from mayors, but from some of our other municipal colleagues, CEOs and administrators of their municipalities. First, the Assistant Town Manager from the town of Arlington, Andrew Flanagan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for your commitment to performance management. I also want to thank the Collins Center as well, and specifically thank Kimberly Wells, who's been our analyst throughout this and has been on the front lines working with department heads, helping us with our pitch and helping get buy-in across our organization. So Arlington is still in its infancy in terms of truly implementing a performance management system. Last year, we had a changing of the guard, if you will. Our town manager, Adam Chapdelaine, got appointed in February, and I was appointed in May. And we're sitting down going through our FY13 budget document, a budget document that's comprehensive, one we're very proud of. And we came to the same conclusion that the town of Arlington is very good at collecting data, but that's where it stopped. So we really lacked the linkage between data collection, data analysis, and then linking it to resource management. So with that, we decided that we were going to really make a commitment, financial commitment, and a staff resource commitment to making this a reality in Arlington. With that, in late spring of last year, we have an annual goal-setting meeting with our Board of Selectmen, where the board sets their goals and the town manager sets his goals. At the forefront of that effort was this idea of performance management. The board adopted it as their goal that they would support financially, and in theory, us proceeding and pursuing something like this. And the manager adopted as one of his goals that he'll be evaluated on. So we had buy-in from not only the administration, but from the elected body as well. With that, and with the thankful support of our town meeting, we funded a full-time management analyst position. Mike Boughton, he's been with us for just about 6 months now, and his efforts in this area have been clear, and the results are already starting to help us in our efforts, in our advocacy. And what we found is, through performance management, even in its infancy in Arlington, it's helped us not only ask the right questions, but answer questions more effectively. So one thing we did last year is we signed a new solid waste contract. Part of that contract was mandatory recycling in separate yard waste disposal. There's a lot of public attention on this. There's a little pushback why people had to put out their recycling bins every week, otherwise the trash wouldn't be picked up. But what we were able to see very quickly through this effort was that there's the direct savings. Mandatory recycling reduced our solid waste disposal by approximately 10%. In addition, because we were picking up yard waste more frequently, less people were putting it in there, mixed in with their solid waste. So there's a very real savings within year one of something that otherwise was considered relatively controversial when we first rolled it out. Sticking with the service side of this effort, we also look very closely at fuel consumption among all our municipal vehicles. This gets us back to asking the right questions, sitting down with our police chief, why is cruiser A7 using 10 times the fuel as cruisers A1, 2, 3, and 4, and help us better align our fleet management system, and that's been very helpful. We've also seen benefits on the human resource side. We were able to look at sick leave in our police department. Some trends that became very clear were actually contradictory to what we actually thought. So I think on a moving forward basis, when we start looking at public works, fire, and police, it's going to be very helpful to our human resource director in informing how we approach collective bargaining in the future. One thing we've been very excited about is that we didn't so much get pushback from department heads. Initially, it was, we don't have the staff to do this, but then I said, we got Mike, so we do have the staff to do it. And what they saw really quickly was, this is going to help me with my cause. This is going to help me stand before town meeting and justify what I'm requesting. So I'm very hopeful that over the course of the next several months, we'll continue to build up our performance measurement system in Arlington, and be well informed and able to answer the questions of our 252 town meeting members next spring. So thanks again.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm glad to hear Arlington is the town meeting and the public have noticed the power of data. And prior to Lowell adopting their formal STAT program, most of the communities, if not all, were communities with a strong mayor-elected form of government. And that changed in Lowell when Bernard Lynch was hired out of Chelmsford. It was smart for Lowell, and I remember Bernie spending a lot of time with us down here at our staff meetings, and I know the fight, and we followed the advocacy he put forth to have Lowell adopt this more innovative approach to management. And all the credit goes to Bernard Lynch, so I want to welcome him up to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for hosting this event along with Secretary Shor. So let me thank both of these individuals and their organizations, as well as the entire Patrick administration, which has really been a supporter of the performance management here in the Commonwealth, and we certainly see it paying dividends in the city of Lowell. Just a little bit of a story, if you will. I had been the town manager in Chelmsford for about 20 years and tried to implement a number of different performance measurement programs there, and setting of goals and strategies to achieve those goals. And I, of course, like many other managers and mayors, was very much impressed by what was taking place in Baltimore with the City Stat program under Mayor O'Malley. And I had hoped to implement something similar in Chelmsford at one point in time, and then the opportunity came to move over to the city of Lowell, and I went over to the city of Lowell, and I remember speaking at that time about the importance of treating the operation of city government in Lowell as a business. It was a business. And I used the quote that someone else had used, because I do like to steal things from other people. And the quote was basically that it is a business, it's the people's business. And I was very anxious to implement a STAT program of something of that sort. And I was very impressed with Mayor Curtatone having done it here in the city of Somerville, and looked to Somerville really as a model for what we could do. And we started to implement the program, but I did run into problems. There wasn't a real support in a political environment in the city of Lowell for dedicating the resources for a STAT program. It did take quite a bit of advocacy, and it took a couple of years before we were able to actually put it in place. And unfortunately, at that point, Mayor Kaiser had already beaten me to the punch up in that area, and I was hoping, I never like to fall behind Thatcher in any way, but it's a program that has worked well in the city of Lowell on a number of different fronts. And I'll give you a few examples of the things we've done, but I'd also like to sort of paint a picture of the condition of the city of Lowell several years ago in the progress that we've made with the city. When I became city manager in 2006, we had 0 for reserves, and we had a number of years of very high tax increases in the city of Lowell. And we also, of course, encountered the recession in 2008, and things were bleak, to say the least. I can stand here today and tell you that because of the concepts of performance management and just good management ideas, and a large part of that has been the STAT program that we've put in place. We have about $15 million in reserves at this time, and we have grown the excess levy capacity from $5 million in 2006 to over $12 million this year. So financially, the city of Lowell is much more stable as a result of the performance management techniques that we've put in place. We've done some simple things, and we've done some more complex things. By simple, I mean small, and by complex, I mean large. Certainly one area that's a major cost driver for all of us is energy. Through our STAT program and other performance management efforts, we've implemented an energy program in the city of Lowell that really required using data to invest over $20 million in our facilities. That investment has provided a net savings to us on an annual basis of $1 million. We've made a decision in looking at the data with our STAT program of ways we could do things differently. Unlike the situation where it was determined that trash collection should stay in-house, looking at our data, we made a decision to privatize our cemetery operations, saving us between $300,000 and $500,000 a year. We've also utilized data to improve our overall responsiveness in public safety. Whenever there's a crime or whenever anything happens in that area, the immediate reaction is we need to hire more people. Well, looking at it with our STAT program, we determined that the more effective use of resources was in fact not hiring more people, but putting more people on the street. And by that I mean using overtime with the concept of smart policing. When we need to put 10 more officers on the street in downtown Lowell on Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, it's much more cost effective for us to hire some of those people on a 4-hour shift just for those 4 hours as opposed to putting people on the street all the time when they're not necessarily being as productive as we would like. Those are just basic management concepts that we were able to put in place utilizing data and utilizing the concept of making decisions based on real information as opposed to gut instincts. In our inspectional services division, we'd encountered an operation that had really no way of measuring how effective they were. We had no way of measuring whether, in fact, our inspectors were actually doing anything. And lo and behold, we found out that many of them, in fact, were not doing anything. Inspections were not taking place. There was a level of corruption taking place in the organization that we were able to reverse through a reorganization and compiling data that would be able to give us some sense of what we were doing. Now, all of that has made us more effective. It has saved us a tremendous amount of money utilizing our STAT program and utilizing these concepts. But importantly, it's also provided us with information that becomes important in talking to our city council about decisions that need to be made. And it also has provided us with information that we can now bring out to our neighborhoods and our residents and provide them with the information so that they can provide us the support to make further improvements in the city of Lowell, whether it's in terms of capital improvements or service delivery. And it also gives them a greater level of confidence in what their city government is doing. So overall, I can't say enough for the use of the STAT program, and I do commend Mayor Curtatone and Mayor Keyser and everyone else that's here at the in front for what we've been able to do in our communities, utilizing basic good management principles. And we're anxious to continue that moving forward and looking forward to that next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. Next, Diana Schindler is the town administrator of the town of Orange. Now, they may only have 7,800 people living in the town, but the responsibilities are as great and challenging as the city of Somerville or Lowell or Boston. And Diana is certainly going to mention the benefit of having that analytical capacity built into the administration of the town through the help of the Collins Center. Diana?
Thanks. Yes, I want to thank everyone for having me here. It was kind of a long trip to speak for such a short time, but this is a very important topic, I think, for the town of Orange. The town of Orange, I think, may be one of the smallest participants in the program. I started in Orange in October, and I inherited a myriad of challenges, including reduced staff, reduced budgets, limited resources, and trying to make everything work the most effectively and productively. I have a finance committee whose message is transparency, efficiency, and accountability, and a staff of less than 40 people to make a town of nearly 8,000 run. Our demographic is challenging. We have values are low, and we're a relatively poor community. So, and an open town meeting form of government. So convincing town meeting of our effectiveness is critical in continuing to improve operations. Elhem, our analyst, was amazing. I inherited her as well and the program. And she had already started working with the police department. We had an increase in crime at the same time we were having a decrease in resources. So it was critical that we convinced the constituents that we could add police officers at a time when our budget did not seem to reflect that. So LHEM helped us get the data together to show that the amount of overtime that we were paying was really excessive, and that if we changed that to straight time, that we could actually, and have an additional sergeant on staff, that we could actually get a lot more bang for our buck, so to speak. At the same time, when we were looking at the data, we realized a couple things, that we did have a lot of data. I think the pushback from department heads in a small community is, again, the fear of their limited time and ability to collect the data. So that was one of the challenges, to show people that we're already collecting a lot of data. As other people have mentioned, oftentimes it's spread among departments or among programs, but we were able to gather everything together and show that we in fact had the data, and it did show that we would be better off in doing that hiring. So we went to a town meeting, and we were successful in getting an additional staff person, and since then it's made a huge difference. We've also focused on public works. We have a very fragmented public works system. We have no department of public works. We have a separate cemetery, parks, water, sewer, highway, and we have commissions as well, elected commissions. So it's extremely challenging because they manage the operations, we manage the staff, and ultimately it all falls on us to show that we're doing a good job at that. We use the Public Works data to show that it would be more effective for a Department of Public Works, and I'm really happy to say at annual town meeting we actually got a vote to create the legislative act to create a Department of Public Works, so another huge success for us. Before I got to Orange, they had been without an administrator for a year, and it's been it's been very overwhelming. Without this program and without the Collins Center and Mike and LHEM, I can't even imagine what we'd be facing. So we're looking forward to implementing a lot more of that. I mean, even today, the chase car, I love that. Why do we need another ambulance? We'll have a chase car. Every time I come to these meetings, I learn more about the possibilities. Going to the larger StatNet meetings, we learn about best practices. We learn about what other communities are doing so we don't have to recreate the wheel. So I was the chair of the Small Town Administrators of Massachusetts for several years, and small towns often ask me, you know, why would we do this? Like, we don't have the time, we don't have the staff, we don't have the energy, but it really does make a difference. At a time when government is constantly having to show that we're effective and efficient for our constituency, no matter how big or small we are, this is an excellent program for small towns. So, thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Scott Galvin became mayor of the city of Woburn a few years ago. I'd known Scott through the practice of law in the courts, and I always found him to be a very strategic thinker, especially on his feet in the courtroom. But what impressed me about Scott and these other leaders here is that immediately upon taking office, like myself, they wanted to find out what are the best practices of the private and public sector. How can we adopt them to make municipal government more flexible, more dynamic, more nimble? Please welcome from the city of Woburn, Mayor Scott Galvin.
Thank you, Mayor. It's great to be here. I appreciate the invitation. In today's world, everybody's using data, everybody's using statistics. It's very rare to find a business or a corporation that is successful that doesn't rely on data and stats to make their decisions. Cities and towns are a little bit behind the eight ball, but thanks to leaders like Joe Curtatone, who started this when he first became mayor, it's become something that us mayors and town managers have strived for, and Woburn is no different. When I became mayor, we took this on as something that was great for the residents, for transparency, and for using the data to help us become a more successful community. We thank A&F and Governor Patrick for their support of the programs of the Community Innovation Challenge Grants. Woburn has participated in all 3 rounds, and we've been very involved in them, from the STAT program to the C-Click Fix, which is a great program that allows our residents to be closer with their mobile apps to make complaints or suggestions about something that needs to be done. So we've incorporated that. That's actually become a part of our STAT program as well. And also, most recently with Mayor Rizzo, we filed an application for the Open Checkbook, which is modeled after the state's Open Checkbook, and I think that's a great program the state's run, and we're looking to get that going in all the cities and towns. Again, I thank Mayor Rizzo for his support. We've got that up and running with Tim Dodd, and that's another one of our programs that we're instituting in Woburn that ties into this whole transparency and the statistics that are important to people in the community to have. With our STAT program, I'd like to thank the Collins Center. That's the common theme here. They've been instrumental in helping cities and towns implement this. We have a great analyst, Sarah. If you could stand up, if you want to stand up, you don't have to. But she's been a great help for Woburn. And in Woburn, we've been doing it for about a year now. And we started with the police department, which was probably the easiest place to go because the chiefs are very progressive and they embrace the statistics. It helps them establish and defend their budget. So we've had some good success with the police department, particularly with their buy-in, which is great. And I think most of the other city and town managers will find the same thing. The police are the most receptive. We've started with the fire department, which remarkably, we've had some good luck with the fire department. We've brought in the captains. In Woburn, we have a change in our chief, so the captains have embraced it somewhat because they know it's important to me and they want to be the next chief. But it's gone well, and we're looking at the statistics as far as where our fire engines are going, where our ambulances are going, and we're trying to make a determination to go from BLS to ALS, and I think the statistics will help us prove to the residents that ALS is a good investment and it's good for the city. So we're excited about that. The DPW has been on board lately, and with Sarah, we're making some strides for them. They've become accountable, and it's not about cutting. We're not in this to cut. We're in this to show the residents what the services are, what they cost, and if there's a will to do it, by the numbers we'll do it. So we're excited. We thank the governor. We thank A&F, and we'll be continuing on this path. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Galvin. Next, actually, Dan Rizzo and I, years ago, we were in the Rappaport Institute, many of those courses over at the Kennedy School, and to expand the knowledge and experience of municipal officials around the metropolitan core. And we were introduced to the concepts of city stat and 311 and performance management. And he and I had many a conversation. He was an alderman in the city of Revere. I was an alderman in the city of Somerville. I ran for mayor before he did, and got to explore and chase my curiosity. Upon becoming mayor, Dan and I have had a great working relationship and sharing those ideas and going back in time and understanding what we learned over at the Rappaport Institute. So I'm glad to see Revere is really leading on the cutting edge here. Please welcome Dan Rizzo from the city of Revere.
Mayor, thank you so much. Secretary, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for what you've done for all of our respective communities, starting back with Governor Patrick's, when he first began his first term with the Municipal Partnership Plan, and now with this performance-based programming that you're involved with, right down to, as a gateway city, a lot of the things that you do for our gateway cities as well. We're very, very appreciative. And Mayor Curtatone, I can't tell you how helpful that he has been when we first wanted to embark on this whole process of performance-based budgeting. He was nice enough to extend the services, not only of himself, but of his staff here in Somerville, so I'm very, very grateful. I am still working on him to become a staunch advocate of gambling at Suffolk Downs, so but it appears that's going to have to be a discussion for some other day. And to all my colleagues here, I was joking with Mayor Galvin before coming up here. I said, what are we going to talk about? We've heard a lot of great stories here, and I'm very happy to hear that Mayor Keyser, while I was part of that new mayor's program at the Collins Center, really didn't hear that part where you said, look, I said it in my inaugural speech, and so I just went ahead and did it. It's kind of the way that I fell upon it. When I was running for mayor, we had talked about some of the things we wanted to do, and so one of those things became very clear, that we wanted to go into a different way of budgeting, which we have just embarked on this year. I'd like to just point out some people that are here with me today. I have my Director of Finance, George Anzoni, is here. my Chief of Staff, Miles Lane Kennedy, my auditor, Laurie Giadella is here, and to Mike Ward, I just want to say you've got some great talented people that work over there at the Collins Center. I know the city of Revere had the great opportunity to work with Chris Dwelly for a while, and now we have really the great benefit now of working with Sarah Concanon. You just have some really great people to work with, and it's really great. It's been a great experience for our city to work with the Collins Center and your talented staff, so thank you very, very much for that. When we first undertook the process of performance-based budgeting through an initial grant, we really were concerned with how this was going to be embraced by our department heads, and we knew we had to go slowly. The culture, I mean, we were still using, when I first took over, I walked in, I was seeing typewriters, I saw carbon paper, I said, this really is not good, I don't know how, but nonetheless, so we knew we had a cultural change that we had to somehow instill amongst our departments. So we started very slowly. We started with our DPW, fire and police, and to my surprise, our department heads really rose to the occasion. I think their first instinct was, okay, we're going to implement this program so we can cut your budget. So we had to make it very clear to them that it's not just about cutting your budget, it's about how we're going to spend our resources that we have available most effectively and most efficiently. And that has really happened. Just as an example, we realized that we had a captain in the police department who was handling all the IT needs over there. We also had a captain in the fire department who was handling their IT needs. And it seemed really, when you add up the salaries of captains in those respective departments that were handling what we believed could have been better handled by a civilian, it made perfect sense to us to add to the ranks of both the fire and police department that could actually work and function in the capacity of which they were hired, and put somebody in that is IT specialized that can kind of share their time between both departments. And so that really, for our community was something that was a real eye-opener, and I think while we're still in the implementation phase, is going to really be of great benefit. And it's things like that, I think, that really make this type of budgeting so positive. To me, it's about opening up discussions. It's, when I was a city councilor prior to becoming mayor, we got the same budget every year in the same format every year. And, the department heads presumably submitted their budget to the mayor, boosted it up 5% and said, I guess this will work. At least that's the way it appeared to me as a city councilor. It really didn't seem like there was any real thought or justification on how they were submitting their budgets. And so now, when we have the ability to sit down with them on a monthly basis and talk about where they're spending their money, how they're spending their money, what we might be able to do differently, how can we maybe conserve here and enhance services there. I think this is where I'm finding benefit. And as I say, we're still in our infancy, as I think a couple of other mayors who have spoken before me. But I can see how going forward this is going to be extremely positive for our community. And I guess on that note, I will just say that we're very, very appreciative, Mr. Secretary, of your support and that of the Collins Center, and we're looking forward to a lot of good things going forward. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Rizzo. And finally, to share the historical perspective how performance management has transformed the administration of her town from the town of Medway, please welcome Town Administrator Suzanne Kennedy.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Secretary, for your support in performance measures and for inviting us to be here today. I'd like to take a slightly different approach to our participation and performance measure. And I'll take you back to another position I held as a budget director in a major metropolitan county in upstate New York. We invited a well-known consultant from Massachusetts to help us participate in a program called Managing for Results, a very comprehensive approach to performance measures. We started with strategic planning based on the county's overall strategic plan and their goals, their vision, their mission, and their goals and objectives. We then asked our department heads to, each of them had to develop their respective goals and objectives. Their divisions and their programs had to have goals and objectives and performance measures attached to those efforts as well. Each department's program was asked to develop a goal, an objective, and an activity. That led us on to more training with regard to performance measures called Measuring for Results, where we learned about inputs, outputs, quality or efficiency measures, and service quality and outcome measures. Then we took that information and looked at, were able to analyze those results and then determine whether or not we needed to do a redesign of the programs or make some improvements in our programs and the like. And with that information, we inputted it into a budget development document, if you will. And then finally, it culminated in performance audits. That effort, ladies and gentlemen, took 2.5 years. And I think it represented the quintessential academic approach to performance measures. But it was ponderous, time-consuming, labor-intensive, and it didn't really engender the support of our department heads. That was during the period covering 1999 and 2000. Fast forward to 2012, when the Collins Center advertised for more applicants to participate in StatNet. We quickly joined the bandwagon, if you will. Our application was accepted, and within weeks, we had an analyst on staff working with us to cull the data that we could analyze for future performance purposes. And I'd like to commend Mike Perez for all his efforts and his forbearance on our shortcomings, if you will. Shortcomings in being data deficient. We, in Medway, have not collected a lot of data. But suffice to say, the rapidity with which the StatNet model was able to get online in Medway, I think had a lot to do with engendering support by the departments who had previously been terribly reticent and apprehensive about participating in performance measures for fear of retribution, or that if they did not perform well, that would be a penalty, some sort of punitive action would be taken. And we've assured them that nothing can go wrong. If there is not a good piece of data or a good outcome, that doesn't mean that you're going to be penalized. It's an opportunity for improvement. So we now have been able, through the model established by StatNet, to engender the support of our department heads, and that's key. So those of you who may not have begun participation in StatNet, those are the two takeaways for me. We're in our rudimentary stages of collecting data and analyzing data. But the two key elements, I think, for any entity that wants to participate in this program is the model developed by the Collins Center, and that we quickly got catapulted into collecting data. And I think now our department heads have recognized, and this is very important, that you have the buy-in of the department heads as well, because you won't get anywhere if you can't get acceptance from them. So I commend the Collins Center and thank the Collins Center for inviting Medway to participate, and I commend you as well for the model that you've established. I think it's a very successful model, and I think those of you who have not yet begun to participate in StatNet will find it very, very worthwhile, because you've helped to catapult Medway into the 21st century. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suzanne. You know, the STAT model really was born out of an approach of utilizing data in the 1990s by Bill Bratton, who left the city of Boston as police commissioner to become the chief of the New York City Police Department, and he undertook a very straightforward approach, in your face with his commanders of every precinct. We're going to measure your crime statistics, we're going to give the resources you need, we're going to hold you accountable, and we're going to ask you the tough questions. And this is not something that's born typically out of a finance division in your municipality. It really takes that analytical capacity. It's asking the questions of why, when you succeed and then where you fail, utilizing the power of data on a real-time basis. Are we filling those potholes as promised? If not, why? Are our crime rates down? Why? Is overtime through the roof? Why? Is it some collective bargaining term or some other staffing problem? Are we picking up trash at the rate we promised? Why? We now today in Somerville measure everything from our operational success and these services, core services, to your subjective happiness. The power of data is really important. It helps solve problems and unlock opportunities. I had the benefit and a mentor in Mayor Martin O'Malley in the city of Baltimore, who, when they went to go look at CompStat in New York for their police department, said, let's apply this a management approach to the operations of the city in every endeavor we undertake. And myself and Dan Rizzo and others learned about this, and I actually campaigned on it. And said, we're going to transform government. We're going to adopt the best practices in from the private and public sector into municipal government, like my colleagues have. And as you look around the room today, you see the leading edge of municipal performance management. Getting government back to work, delivering results. And all of my colleagues here in the room are leading the way in using data to make informed decisions based on careful analysis, not gut reactions. You can't manage what you don't measure, as the old adage says. And today, this is the news. But the goal is that a few years from now, especially with continued support from the state, and we thank you, Secretary Shor and the Governor, good management through performance management won't be news. Data-driven decision-making and regional sharing of these best practices can and should benefit every municipality in the state and really should become commonplace. So today we are not just reporting back on our own successes, but consider this an invitation to all the Commonwealth's municipal leaders to join us in this effort. And again, I want to thank Secretary Shor and the Collins Center for supporting this effort and really helping transform municipal management and municipal governance in the Commonwealth. And as a state, we can emulate a best practice from every corner. I want to thank you for coming out today. I want to thank my colleagues in government and participants in the panel. We'll be available for questions since we've gone through our time limit. For any members of the press who are here today, any members of the panel will be happy to speak to you. Thank you very much.